Kia ora all, and welcome to the Huddy Hui, episode 44. And back in the Wellington region is Adam Julian. Adam, how are you? Good to see you back.
It's nice to be back. I've had a fantastic time touring the North Island. I was in Carmo for 2 weeks, and in Carmo, there's a beautiful depiction of Ian Jones, a mural beside the Hooked Inn, where they sell big, tasty mussel fritters. So that explains why I'm a little bit larger on the screen tonight.
Sure, it wasn't just McLeod's beer. So. Well, good to see you back, Adam. And Adam will be on Te Puko Te Ika this weekend, Avalon and Johnsonville Old Timers Day.
Forward to that. That's going to be a fantastic game. Avalon Old Timers Day, one of the oldest clubs in the Lower Hutt area, and they are determined to break a long losing sequence against the Johnsonville side, who you saw in round one have an impressive win against Wellington.
Exactly, impressive win, and they nearly came close to beating Tawa in the weekend, and of course saw Avalon last Thursday night. It was a special game played before Good Friday, and our guest tonight played in that game in the second five position, and that is Callum Harkin of Old Boys University. Callum, many thanks for coming on the Hui. Old Boys University, a pretty comfortable win over Avalon, but they made hard work of it.
Yeah, I guess it was one of those games that we just had to warm up into, I guess. Started slow, there were a few errors, but the strong carries were a positive sign, I guess, from the get-go. And I sort of knew it was Avalon on one of those teams where they'll sort of throw everything at you for 20, 30, and as long as you can bear that front, you should be able to ride them out. But, yeah, no, it was good. It's
a very new Old Boys University team this year. Tell us about some of the new personalities that you're enjoying playing with.
Yeah, it's a completely different team. I think there's probably 7 or 8 of us from last year, but there's a lot of new boys, a lot of young boys, university students, and they bring a whole different energy, man. Like, they're just young guns that are ready to go, and that's something that you can it sort of just rubs off on you, really. That energy.
And so you're playing a second five. Tell us about the first five that you're alongside and how you work the back line.
From the Avalon game, Tom. Yep, he's a good young man he came out of Sharkies in Dunedin. He's a good player, man. Good catch pass, good kicking skills, reads the game well. Hopefully I don't have to spend too much time at 12. It's not a position that I'm too fond of because I'm not exactly a Ma'anonu-esque player, but whether I find myself back at 10 or at 15, we'll see.
Because also you mentioned about not your favourite position. You've played all across the back line. Of course, you started your career off as a halfback. So tell us about moving throughout the back line in different positions.
Yeah, I moved from halfback to 10 in 2018 for that under-19s tournament. It's a little bit easier on the lungs just not playing halfback anyway, but halfback. But yeah, no, it's been good. It's a whole different, literally it's quite a different ball game from going from halfback to 10 because it's a whole different style of passing. It's a whole different approach to the game. But I have no problem playing anywhere, to be honest, because all it does for you is improve your game IQ, how you see the game, how you read the game.
Your switch from 9 to 10 happened because of Ricky Flutey, who did a similar thing. Tell me about Ricky Flutey's influence on your career.
Oh, he's a character, man. And he's a really good dude too. I think we had a few warm-up games. We'd had that Hawke's Bay games. That Hawke's Bay game was my first game at 10 at the stadium. I think we put 40 points on them. And Flute sort of went to me at training. He's like, yeah, we're going to try you at 10 this week. And I was like, I've never played 10. So I was a bit scared because I was lining up against Lincoln McClutchy and Danny Tuala, who are obviously two pretty good rugby players. And there was 1 or 2 defensive misreads on my behalf. But yeah, I thought it went all right otherwise. So yeah, no, it was fun. It's good fun.
Tell us about your time in Ireland.
Jeez, that's an experience, man. I was probably only 17 or 18 when I went over, and it's so hard to explain how you sum it up because the game's a whole different game over there. It's a lot more set piece structured. Like they put so much emphasis on their set piece and how they're going to attack from that. And I mean, outside of rugby, it was almost even better. Like the nightlife, the people. I mean, the guy I flattered with was from Rosberg, which is a small coastal town, and he's a bit of a traveller. Like he was there one week, gone the next, so you never really knew where he was. But I mean, the friends I made over there are the friends I still have for life. So we keep in contact regularly. And that was a great experience. Yeah.
How did that experience come about in the first place, and who were some of the prominent rugby personalities you met over there? I understand you had a bit to do with Ruan Pina.
A little bit to do with Ruan Pina. He was sort of on his way out of Ulster as I sort of showed up. It was more Charles Pietau and Christian Wiliafano that were there when I was there. And there's a guy, Sean Reddy, who's a flanker for Ulster that came out of Queenstown many moons ago. And they were all like, they're sort of the way they run it. Their academy and their top team train together. Like they're trained very closely. And so you're sort of rubbing shoulders with these guys most days. And their academy is a lot more time consuming than the academies we have here in New Zealand. Like their academies will run 4 days a week, 4 hours a day sort of thing. And yeah, it's pretty full on, eh?
So, of course, promising career. You got into the Wellington Lions squad for 2 years in a row. And then you had a game for the Hurricanes in Levin pre-season. But then that started a long period of injury concerns for you, Callum. So tell us about how you've managed to rebuild yourself after some pretty bad injuries.
Yeah. You sort of ride like life, you ride the waves, the highs and lows. You sort of take it as it comes. Like injury is always going to be a part of the game. Some get them more than others. I guess I've had a run the last 2 years where I seem to be injured every second week. But prior to that, I wouldn't know what an injury was. Yeah, I don't know. I think the massive, and it's been spoken about in the last few years a bit more around the mental fitness being just as important as the physical fitness. And I honestly, like, I can't back that enough. Like that's a massive part of the game. And you sort of, you know, you go from a position where you're going through a pre-season with the Canes and you get injured and you sort of spend a lot of time away from the game, and then you come back to the game and you sort of second guess yourself a little bit. And that obviously can lead to injury itself, but I think I'm sort of the fittest I've been since that broken leg, and so far so good. Like I've had a good run, Wellington development back into last year, played some good games there, and was in brief talks at a gig over in Dallas, but I never followed through on that just because I think the Dallas Jackals were sort of battling with COVID, and Texas already has the Houston Sabercats and one other team. So they sort of withdrew their team. But I think they're going to plan to put a team forward at some stage. And so pro footy's not off the cards. It's just taking a back seat at present.
Now, Eastbourne's taken a back seat for you. They're complaining that you're too fat. So tell us about your time in Eastbourne colours.
Yeah, it's not my fault I'm not under 85 anymore. That place raised me, and it's still a place that I hold dear to my heart. I mean, I spent best part of 7 or 8 years playing my junior footy for them. And I always say if they ever do field a Prem team, I'd love to have a game or two for them. But you just don't really have the numbers out there to field that sort of team. But as a junior, we went probably, because my dad coached us, we went 7 years unbeaten. You can ask anyone from Harry Boyle to Todd Svensson, they'll tell you that Eastbourne were the team to beat in the junior grades. But yeah, no, it was a really close team. Like every year we had the same players, so there was never players coming and going. It was just a set team. Like, and yeah, you'd go to school with those boys. You'd rock up to training after school. It's just a small community, and it's footy was everything growing up.
And then there was a period with the Wellington XMen.
There was a period with Wellington XMen. Yep. First year out of school, I was working and living in town, and I honestly, because I was a hut boy through and through, my knowledge of who was good and what clubs to play for in town, I was just went to the club that was closest to me, and that was the XMen, and spent a couple of years there, and they were good years. obviously playing halfback, found myself on the wing sometimes. But yeah, no, XMen was a good part of my life and one that I'll never forget.
Of course, then you made the move to Old Boys University, the Billy Goats, and tell us about some of the key influences there at the club that when you moved over there. And of course, you had great success in 2020 with the Jubilee Cup final. Tell us about your experiences then.
Yeah. So my dad played for what was at the time the Harlequins. That was, I think, pre-amalgamation. And he was sort of on my case to go to Old Boys before I even went to the XMen. And coming back from Ireland, he sort of pushed that a fair bit for me to go there. And so I went there and I've met Jamie Williams, the coach, a couple of other guys. We sort of had a sit down, Paddy Goff, some club rugby legends, and they sort of were basically pushing their case for why I should go to Old Boys. And I was always going to go to Old Boys. It was, you got guys like, I had guys like Jonathan Fuimanu, those sort of guys. Their experience and their value, bro, is irreplaceable. Like, the way that he can lead a team with such little words and such large actions is the reason that people follow people like him, leaders of our community,
Who are the leaders now that he's gone?
Well, we still got Huddy Hui. He's probably pushing 30, but he's still there. Kyle Preston, he's a good leader, bro. He leads with his actions. Another one of those guys. Not a guy that says much, but just, unbelievable player. I'll tell you what, the core team has been stripped, the leadership team. We have young guys like Dominic Roppetti that are coming up. He's another guy. But yeah, it's like the whole team's a new team. The leadership team's a new team. But yeah, there's still leadership doesn't have to be from the year before or the year before that. Leadership was through those that lead well. So we still have that.
All right. So, of course, the Wellington Lions, you got selected in there and 2 years in a row. Last year, you weren't part of the Lions, but you played for the Wellington B. What's it like being in the professional setup at NPC level?
It's very competitive. Massive step up. There's a reason why there's full-timers and part-time rugby players, because the full-time, those trainings, they're flat out. Like, you train as hard, if not harder, than what you'd expect to have in a game. Anything like the people that are the most successful at that next level are the ones that sort of do bits and bobs when training's done. Like, they'll go up, watch clips, review, preview, all that sort of stuff that makes a professional a professional. So yeah, I sort of had to learn quite quickly for the years that I was with the Lions that you do need to look at who you're playing, who your matchups are, where their weaknesses are, where their strengths are, and learn to sculpt a game plan around, exploiting that.
One more question for you, Callum. Barrett or Mo'unga, who would you play at 10 if you were the All Black coach?
Oh, great question, man. Look, if it was Super Rugby level, I'd go with Mo'unga. At the All Blacks level, I'd probably go with Beauden Barrett. You watch Richie Mo'unga at super level, man, that guy is unbelievable. Like, some of the things that he can do is unbelievable. And it's a matter of time before he takes that to the ABs level. But Bodie's proved himself time and time again at the ABs level, just how good he is, So I'd probably go Bodie at ABs level. Yeah.
And one last question from me, Callum. Pitches O'Houlihan. You're a loyal Silverstream old boy like us too. But he claims that you are like Wellington College now. Is that true?
Oh, he told me he'd be in your ear. No, I'm a streamer through and through, bro. I know if Patches is listening, I've got a word for you at training, mate. No, Patch is a good bastard, man. He's a club legend. He always will be. But yeah, die-hard Dub C boy.
Callum, that's Huddy Hui with us tonight. Thank you very much for coming on. All the best for the weekend. And hope the rest of your season goes well.
Cheers for having me, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Callum. Well, Adam, Callum Harkin, a real promising player, plays across most of the backline, but he seems to have found first five, second five his main position now.
Well, he's got a prodigious right boot. I remember when I first saw Callum, he was a halfback at St. Pat Silverstream, there was another guy called Callum McLaughlin who's played cricket for Wellington, and he was the guy that kept Callum Harkin out of the team. There was a bit of a battle between them. So Callum Harkin's transitioned into first five, and he's become a very good player. That 2020 Jubilee Cup final, what a sensational game that was. Norths were overwhelming favourites to win that, and OBU tackled themselves to a standstill and won that convincingly. And now Harkin is a senior member of that very fine OBU backline. It's a new team, but they're 2 wins from 3 and a serious contender perhaps this year.
Exactly. And of course, this weekend we've got some big, massive games. Of course, you've mentioned in the earlier, you've got Avalon and Johnsonville. But there's also Huddy Hui and Tawa this weekend. And that's a repeat of the Jubilee Cup semi-final that we called last year.
And Tawa absolutely demolished Huddy Hui Marist on that day. 29-18 was the score, but that scoreline actually flattered the Eagles. They'll be pretty determined to reverse that result against a Tawa side. He hasn't started very convincingly this year. They struggled against Johnsonville last week, lost to Marist St Pat's, and had a default against Parramatta Plimpton, who I noticed only went down to Huddy Hui Marist by 4. So that's going to be a fascinating game.
Exactly right. Of course, Marist St Pat's Wellington, that should be you'd think it would be a straightforward game for Marist St Pat's, but of course, everyone didn't expect Upper Hutt to trip them over last week at Maidstone Park.
Absolutely sensational result for Upper Hutt. 1 win in 30 games against Marist St Pat's, dating back to 2002. In 2002, the Ketchup song was at the top of the chart. So that's how rare it is for Upper Hutt to beat Marist St Pat's. What a fine victory. And one of the good stories from that game is Jack Svensson. Todd Svensson, sorry, I get them confused. There's 4 of them or something. He played his Blazer game, and he's had horrific misfortune with his shoulder. He's had at least 2 reconstructions, but he finally got his 30th Blazer game, and what a way to mark that occasion with a memorable win against Marist St Pat's.
Last weekend, I called on Huddy Sports Petoni versus Oran to Rongotai, and that was a game that went down to the final minute with Petoni scoring in the corner to win the game, and which is probably one of the best games of club rugby I've seen for a long time. And you got to see the likes of Riley Higgins on fire, and he just controlled that backline from the second 5 position. But we're going to be losing these guys like Higgins and Peter Larkai very soon to under-20s program stuff. What do you feel about these guys missing out on club rugby?
Well, Peter Larkai, he's like the junior Gus Solkula. What a good player he is. It's unfortunate that the under-20s players will be removed from club rugby. It'll strip Petoni of basically 3 of their best players. Harry Godfrey, the youngster from Whanganui Collegiate, I understand he's playing very well. Higgins,
he's outstanding. Yeah.
Obviously, key part of their midfield, and Larkai, just a superb workhorse. But the fitness and the expectations, I guess, in the under-20s program, a little bit different to club rugby, but frankly, I'd prefer them to be in club rugby.
And of course, Petoni this weekend travel out to Jerry Collins Stadium to play Norths. Of course, Norths lost to Paniki last week. They're only 2-1 for the season, Norths, but Petoni, they've still got those guys available for them this weekend. But they really do need to win that game, Petoni, because probably the next month or 2 could be quite challenging for them.
Well, they play Marist St Pat's on the 7th of May. That's going to be a blockbuster contest, that one. Petoni 3-0. But the other side that are making headlines this year, and perhaps you wouldn't have expected at the beginning of the season, is Porneki. They've won 3 games in a row. They won 7 games in a row last year. They're on a 10-match winning streak.
They certainly are. I remember they beat Petoni in the Harkin Cup in extra time. What a standing final that one was. I nearly lost my voice calling the Jubilee Cup final, the next one around. But that's the Huddy Hui for this week. Many thanks, Adam, and our guest, Callum Harkin, joining our broadcast. We'll be back next Wednesday, same time, same place. Who knows who our guest will be, but you'll find out who it will be the start of next week. Have a great weekend. Keep safe.
It won't be Michael Baker.
No, it won't be Michael Baker. No. That's the Huddy Hui for tonight. Ciao for now.